lot of views that are articulated we may not like to hear, but we still have to respect the right of the individual to say those views. As we approach that at the University of Kentucky, it's making sure that people have the right to express their views. That's a fundamental right that we want to ensure.
There are some studies out there that have studied protests throughout the United States, and they ask whether or not they have influenced people by their protests.
Due to universities' respect for First Amendment rights, college campuses act as the perfect breeding grounds for protests. Students have taken to demonstrating against everything from trivial events such as classes on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving to more serious issues like sexual assault and discrimination based on gender or race. Victoria Cruz, a freshman here at UK, is currently taking a stand against racism on campus.
On UK's campus, I think that there's a lot of racial issues. I think that the campus is very segregated. Even though it is 2016, there's still a Mr. and Mrs. Black UK, and then there's like a Mr. and Mrs. UK. So everything's sort of segregated. And so some wonderful people in our dorm wrote like "kill blacks" on the board and other racial slurs on the board. It's just so sad, and so it made me so angry. But people don't feel safe in the dorm, and that's just not okay. My motivation is just like treat others as you'd like to be treated. It's what we teach kids in kindergarten. You want to read the book, it's like a children's book it's an allegory of the Holocaust, and it's called The Terrible Things. The terrible things came for the birds, they came for the bees, they came for all the other animals, and then they came for the rabbits, and they were like, oh, who's going to help us? And there's no one there to help you. And so if you only like worry about yourself and you're like, oh, that doesn't affect me, who's going to like protect you? You have to be willing to see yourself in someone else.
I do know that the university here and its administration do try to listen to the issues, try to see if there's any validity in it, and then try to see if concessions can be made and adapt things within our community. We have that open-minded of an administration to do that.
A follow-up with President Capelouto of him answering and saying, okay, I hear you, would be nice, but he hasn't said anything. After like you've protested and you've gotten your message across, there's a next step before change, sort of like putting a system in place so that there are more minority professors on campus, or sexual harassers on campus have to answer for what they've done instead of just leaving the campus, so that seeing that there's an actual outcome. I think protests are effective in bringing attention to problems, but then I think after you've protested, there needs to be a follow-up, and in order for actual change to be made, because if we just went outside and we said, this isn't right, you need to change things, and then people are like, oh, okay, that's not what's actually going to happen. You're going to have to go through a long process. I don't know exactly how to create change on campus other than getting groups of people together and showing the university that these people are here and they do have a problem with it.
Even when you talk about protests, it's virtually impossible to gauge what the impact of those protests are on an issue or on any type of decision making. Now, I will tell you that some of the protests arising out of the 60s and 70s in particular did result in some legislative changes. Okay. When that happens, you know that they have had an impact.